Tonight, a health warning for parents. An unusual rise in hepatitis cases among children sees parents told to check for signs of jaundice.
We see seasonal changes in viruses, and unfortunately we haven't seen this sort of pattern for some time.
Also making the headlines, the cost of living crisis, the rising price of keeping a roof over your head.
In sport, as Rangers get set to face Braga, Van Bronckhorst says his squad has the quality to cope without the injured Alfredo Morelos.
And spring in their steps, we check out the cutest Easter attractions. I'm Emma Cameron in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6.
Good evening. There's growing concern this evening about an outbreak of hepatitis in young children across the country. Public Health Scotland is warning parents to check young children for signs of jaundice after a number of cases of paediatric hepatitis emerged in 4 Scottish Health Board areas.
At the moment, there is no clear connection between the cases. Health officials say all potential causes are being explored. Our political editor Colin Mackay is across the story. And Colin, how many children are involved?
Well, so far there are 11 cases. That might not sound like very many, but that's more in the course of 3 weeks than you usually get in Scotland in a whole year. It's serious stuff as well, because all 11 children are aged between 1 and 5. They're from 4 Health Board areas: Lanarkshire, Tayside, Greater Glasgow and Clyde and Fife. And most of them have had to have hospital treatment, either here at the Sick Kids in Edinburgh or in Aberdeen, or at the Sick Kids in Glasgow. Now, Dr Nick Finn of Public Health Scotland says it's not clear what's causing the outbreak and the cases aren't connected, but it is very concerning.
Obviously, we don't expect to see this many children over such a short period and in this particular age range. So we've started up an incident management team, and we are investigating potential causes of this. I think it's likely there may be others, perhaps not as severe as the ones we've seen. And I suspect over the next day or two, we may well see 1 or 2 more.
Now, most of the kids have recovered, but 2 had to get specialist treatment in liver units in both Leeds and in London. It is potentially infectious, and there could be more cases. It's not being connected to COVID, and it's thought it could be caused by an infection, but the source of it isn't yet clear. And the advice from Public Health Scotland to parents is that if you have young kids and they're looking a bit jaundiced, particularly around the whites of the eye, then contact your GP.
Colin in Edinburgh, thank you.
Most of us take having a roof over our heads for granted, but tonight there's more evidence paying for it is getting harder. The charity Shelter Scotland has found around half of us struggle with our housing costs.
The solutions aren't as clear-cut as they might seem. Some say controls on rents would help, but that could also see landlords sell up. More social housing is also seen as a solution, but campaigners say not enough are being built. Here's our senior reporter, Gordon Cree.
Sandy moved from the Highlands to Glasgow for work last autumn. He's been sofa surfing and is now having to rent a room rather than a flat.
Pretty frustrating. This is my first job since graduating, and I'm trying my hardest to put in a good effort. And when you've got the uncertainty of actually having somewhere to live, to call your home, it's a bit of a burden that I've had on me for quite some time now.
Rents in Scotland's biggest cities have risen significantly in the past year. In Edinburgh, letting a property will now cost you an average of almost £1,000 a month, and increasingly that's unaffordable.
What we're seeing is nearly 50% of people saying that they are struggling with their housing costs at some point. And worryingly, nearly 60% of people with children are also struggling with their housing costs. Now, for us, this raises serious worries that more people are going to be pushed into homelessness.
Legislation on rent controls is to be brought forward in Parliament.
The consultation on that has just over a week left to run, so I would encourage people to respond to that if you haven't already, and make sure that we can get the best, most effective system of rent controls that not only helps affordability, but also creates incentives to improve quality in the private rented sector as well.
It could be 2025 before that comes into force, not soon enough for the Living Rent Union.
And this is a huge issue. Like, it's not just a few bad apples, the entire system is rotten. This is contributing to the fuel poverty, the cost of living crisis, the climate crisis, and it's literally making us sick. Like, it's not on. The Scottish Government has to introduce rent controls now because we just really can't afford to wait a second longer.
The biggest letting agent for the private rented sector believes more rules could drive some landlords to simply sell up.
At the moment we house 700,000 tenants in Scotland, 340,000 properties in the PRS. Let's try and encourage more investment into that, and that will regulate the rents by supply and demand. But if you bring in rent controls and more landlords leave the market, where are these 700,000 people going to live?
One solution with wide support is to build more social housing. Across Scotland, there's a target of providing 100,000 new ones over the next decade. Campaigners say that falls far short of what's needed. And for those struggling now, a more affordable option can't come soon enough. Gordon Cree, STV News, Edinburgh.
Well, while everyone is watching their wallets, workers and businesses have started paying more tax from today as the rise in national insurance payments takes effect. The UK government says the increase is right and fair to help pay for health and social care.
Changes to help lower earners are due to come into force in July. Opposition parties say the move is the wrong tax at the wrong time. Our political correspondent Ewan Petrie reports.
For businesses and employees, the burden of tax just got heavier. The increase in national insurance adds to pressure on household budgets, as well as firms like this food wholesaler.
There's been a catalogue of costs that have hit this business over the last 3 years.
Here they've calculated their basic costs, including fuel, energy and now national insurance, have gone up nearly £500,000 in the past year.
We've had to absorb it. We can't keep passing price increases on to our customers. So we, as a business, will make less money and be able to invest less for the following year. As far as our employees are concerned, we're more concerned about that because that is a massive amount of money for employees to be paying on top of everything else that they're paying. We just have to become more efficient. There is no other way to do it.
National insurance contributions have risen by 1.25%. However, changes announced in the spring statement last month will reduce the burden for some. From July, the threshold for starting to pay increases. That means those earning under £35,000 will pay less. For example, someone earning £25,000 will be better off by £200, but someone on £50,000 will lose more than £100 per year.
Which is the one where you go into a sort of tunnel and they play you music.
The UK government argues the increase is needed to help fund the NHS and social care.
What we're doing today is unquestionably the right thing for our country. It's the right thing for the NHS because we've got here in the UK, we've now got backlogs, waiting lists of 6 million people.
Opposition parties say the increase will hit those already struggling with the cost of living.
We've had 15 tax rises, if you can believe it, from this Chancellor. So we've now got the highest rate of taxation for 70 years. So this, I'm afraid, is the wrong tax at the wrong time.
Any business in Scotland is now facing the cumulative impact of significant additional costs, and that is not something that we feel we can support. The Chancellor has other levers to support businesses right now, and he's not using them.
The Scottish Government has committed to pass on all funding received from this change to health services in Scotland. Ewan Petrie, STV News.
Other stories across Scotland, and P&O Ferries is resuming sailings on the routes which were suspended after it sacked nearly 800 seafarers. The ship, which runs between Cairnryan and Larne, will operate again next week. Last month it announced widespread redundancies, replacing its crews with cheaper agency workers without notice.
Vulnerable women and children are being left increasingly fragile as a result of spending cuts and the soaring cost of living. That's according to Scottish Women's Aid, who are calling for candidates in next month's local council elections to pledge their support to domestic abuse help services.
Deaths from COVID in the last week reached the highest number since February last year. 192 people had COVID on their death certificate in the week ending 20th of March. That's according to the National Records of Scotland. This was an increase of 71 on the previous week. The former Scottish Health Secretary Jean Freeman has told a jury she trusted ex-SNP MP Natalie McGarry to run an independence organisation's finances, but grew worried when she repeatedly failed to provide bank statements and other information.
Natalie McGarry, who represented Glasgow East, denies allegedly embezzling more than £25,000 from two campaign groups between 2013 and 2015. Our chief reporter Sharon Frew was in court.
The former Health Secretary is the first to be called as a witness in this trial. Jean Freeman began her evidence by outlining how she and four others founded the organisation Women for Independence in 2012 to give women a voice in the run-up to the independence referendum. The jury was told Natalie McGarry was given responsibility for the group's finances in spring 2013 as she had knowledge of crowdfunding. The court heard two crowdfunders before the referendum raised over £36,000, and this money was used to fund the national and local groups as well as fund merchandise including T-shirts, mugs and leaflets. Ms Freeman said Women for Independence was based on trust between members, and anyone struggling with their role was encouraged to speak up and ask for help. The court heard after the referendum steps were taken to formalise the structure of the organisation and attempts were made to finalise the financial accounts. Ms Freeman described how Natalie McGarry was repeatedly asked to provide all the required information, including bank statements and receipts. Ms Freeman said when this information was not forthcoming, the situation moved from being frustrating and annoying to worrying. The jury heard deadlines were set and extended for Ms McGarry, who by then was an elected MP. Ms Freeman said, "We kept saying to her, we know you're busy, give us everything you have, and another member who's a qualified accountant will deal with everything." Ms Freeman described to the court one occasion where she said Ms McGarry dumped a bag containing some information on her doorstep and then ran away. Ms Freeman said she found this strange for someone she had worked with so closely for 3 years. The court was shown an email exchange between the two women in which an absolute deadline was set. Ms Freeman said it was not until she saw bank statements that she realised that the PayPal account was linked to Ms McGarry's personal bank account. She said this was a significant sum of money and I thought there was the potential for criminal behaviour. Natalie McGarry denies the two charges she faces. This trial will continue tomorrow.
The Scottish Government has paid the owner of the old military road, used as a backup to the Rest and Be Thankful, almost £1 million over the last 5 years to allow cars to drive along it. The route is only used when the A83 between Arachar and Cairndhu is closed due to landslides. Ollie Dickinson reports.
It's one of Scotland's best-known routes, the road to Argyll. But for years now, the A83 at the Rest and Be Thankful near Loch Lomond has been infamous rather than famous. Regular closures due to landslides mean drivers frequently face lengthy detours or waiting to drive in a convoy system along the old military road. The disruption often puts people off travelling, meaning businesses like this one in Arachar miss out on passing trade.
So when you got to Tarbert, it was just basically road ahead closed and then just sent all the traffic up to Crane Lanark, whereas I'd be coming to my work ready to start serving customers and everybody's getting diverted up towards Crane Lanark. Nobody's coming for that way because the road's blocked with the landslide. So the debate is, well, you just went home. You know, you'd be lucky if you took in £5-10 takeaway and cover your fuel that day. You know, it's very frustrating.
The Scottish Government has identified its preferred route to replace the problem section of road, but for now the military road remains the fallback. But it's privately owned, A Freedom of Information request seen by STV News shows Transport Scotland paid the landowner nearly £1 million over the last 5 years in order to use it.
I think the whole thing is frustrating that we've just not got on with putting in place a proper solution that's actually going to fix this problem. Because it's quite clear with climate change this problem's going to get worse and worse over the years, and yet it feels like constantly it's sticking plaster after sticking plaster, kicking the can down the road. And we need this to get a grip and to actually fix this problem definitively.
With a long-term fix still some distance away, diversions, delays and disruption remain the only permanent fixture on the A83. Ollie Dickinson, STV News.
Let's go to the sport now, and here's Ronnie.
Get your fill of the action. STV Sport, sponsored by Papa John's Pizza.
Yes, a very good evening. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst says Rangers have the quality to cope without Alfredo Morelos for the rest of the season, but admits it's a huge disappointment seeing the Colombian sidelined. The Ibrox boss was speaking as Rangers jetted out to Portugal ahead of their Europa League quarter-final against Braga. Back on the training ground ahead of another huge European trip, but this time with one noticeable absentee. Alfredo Morelos sidelined till next season after an operation to his thigh. But despite the Colombian's absence, Giovanni Van Bronckhorst is confident his squad have the depth to cope.
Of course, it's a big blow because he's he's our striker. We don't have him anymore for this season. The reality is he's not there, and we have to prepare this game without him, and that's what we've done the last days, and that's what we are focusing on for tomorrow as well.
Rangers jetted out to Braga this afternoon with the prize of a place in the last four in sight. As well as Morelos, Alex Lowry is out of the European squad with injury, with Philippe Hollander not registered. The Ibrox club are favourites to make the semi-finals, and Van Bronckhorst says it's an opportunity his players should relish.
It's not often you play a quarter-final in Europe and you have the chance to reach the semi-finals. It's not for many players. I think people were saying it's the best draw we could have a couple of weeks ago, but I think it's a very good team.
Rangers will be looking to bounce back after Sunday's disappointing Glasgow derby defeat.
Obviously, you could see on the pitch we wasn't happy, but as the boss said, we've just sort of got to put it behind us and move forward. We've got big games coming up, and we believe that it's not over till it's over.
Staying with football, and it's been confirmed Bobby Madden will take charge of the Scottish Cup semi-final between Celtic and Rangers. Madden is no stranger to the fixture. He was the referee in Celtic's 3-0 win over their Glasgow rivals in February. The SFA have hit back at players from the women's national team after a row broke out over ticket sales for their upcoming qualifier. Scotland Stars called out the association over the lack of availability for the match next week. The SFA say, however, the players have misunderstood how tickets are sold and more will be available on demand. And after earning her 50th cap for Scotland, Lana Skeldon says she'd love to see the day when women's rugby in Scotland becomes professional. The hooker made her debut 11 years ago and says the game has progressed massively already in that time.
It's came a very long way from 2011 to now. It's certainly improved a lot. I remember the early days where you had to hand back your kit at the end of the year. You didn't get to keep that. It's very different from that now. Hopefully the women's game will become a fully professional thing within the next, I don't really know, I don't want to put a timeline on it because I have no idea, but maybe the next 10 years, who knows. Hopefully I'll still be kicking around for that.
Finally tonight, undisputed boxing champion Josh Taylor says he's still not decided whether to vacate his world titles and move up a weight division following his controversial victory over Jack Catterall. Taylor says he was angry when online trolls targeted his family for abuse in the wake of his last fight, but now he's eager to move on to his next chapter. Here's Jamie Bothwick.
Showing his home city the fruits of a glittering career to date. Josh Taylor had his world title belts on display for a fan meet and greet, his first public appearance since a controversial split decision that got all of boxing talking. His victory over Jack Cattrall drew intense reactions aimed at Taylor and his loved ones.
I've got thick skin, but yeah, I'm okay. What was difficult was seeing how my family was getting it. My fiancée was getting it, my little sister was getting it, and seeing it affect them in a way was quite hard to take. So that did sort of make me angry that people were targeting them rather than myself. But yeah, I'm not bothered, really, it is what it is, and moving on.
The 31-year-old looked certain to step up a weight category after his last performance, but now he'll consult with his team before making a firm decision. Either way, he's ruling out a Cattrall rematch.
If I was staying at 140, my natural progression I'd want to do was have the rematch with Jack straight away, but it's going to be proven near enough impossible to do that because the WBA have called in the mandatory, then after that will be the WBC and the WBO, and so it's just mandatory after mandatory defence, unfortunately. I need to sit down and speak with my nutritionist and Ben, my coach, and my management as well, but it's probably looking likely that I'm going to go up to 147, but we don't know yet.
And for now, Taylor is focused on life away from the ring.
We're getting married in June, which is good, and then going on a honeymoon, which we're looking forward to, the both of us, and then get back to the gym again and hopefully prepare for a fight later on in the year and then see what happens.
The Tartan Tornado's professional career has been a whirlwind of success so far. Whatever comes next, he's still determined not to be blown off course.
Last bit of news before we go. Jamie Batty says extending his contract with the Glasgow Warriors was one of the simplest decisions in his professional career. That's all your sport. Back same time tomorrow. Bye for now.
Get your fill of the action. STV Sport, sponsored by Papa John's Pizza.
Now Sean has the weather.
Watch out for a sudden temperature drop. TUI Blue Hotels, sponsor STV Weather.
Now, even though we lost the cold air a few days ago and Shetland and Orkney have stored it up for us, they'll be sending it back southwards through the next 24 hours, so we go back into the colder air. Now, by day it shouldn't feel too bad. Temperatures will be about 6 or 7 degrees, but that's quite a bit down on the 10s, 11s we've had recently, so we'll feel a bit chillier, but it's the overnight temperatures where we're really going to notice a difference. We'll be below freezing, I expect, over the next couple of nights. Not tonight, mind you, because we're going to hang on to lots of showers, and some of those showers will be heavy through this evening, so a particularly wet evening for most of us, but then turning a little bit drier later on the night. As the northerly wind starts to set in, that's when the Highlands take most of those showers and many of us become drier. So tomorrow morning there should be a fair amount of dry weather with sunshine, some scattered showers across eastern parts, and there will be wintry over higher ground, and most of the showers that come down during the afternoon will be along the west coast and the Hebrides. So for many central and southern areas, a fair amount of dry weather with sunshine, and there we go, those temperatures back into single figures highs tomorrow, 9 degrees in the lights of Dumbarton. Now, we should start off dry and sunny on Friday. It will be a very chilly, frosty start for many of us, mind you. Then we'll see this little weather front coming in from the north. That will bring in some heavy showers through the afternoon, and they will be wintry over higher ground. Then on Saturday and Sunday, if you've got plans, the good news is it's looking largely dry with sunshine. Again, our temperatures 8 or 9 degrees by day, but still some pretty chilly nights. Bye-bye.
TUI Blue Hotels, sponsor STV Weather.
And finally, with Easter holidays upon us, Scotland's attractions are welcoming back visitors with a range of places hosting spring-themed events for all the family to enjoy.
Yes, from egg hunts to lambing, there's plenty to get involved in, as Laura Boyd found out when she got her wellies on and headed down to Monty's farm in Cardross.
It's a wonderful time to see all the lambs. Well, we saw two chicks separate, standing together, and then they had cute eyes, and me and Erin thought they were like us because there was one short like Erin and there was one tall like me. And we saw the baby lambs. Yeah, well, not the baby lambs, the baby goats. Whatever they are.
Whatever they are, the animals at Monty's farm in Cardross are proving quite a hit, as the attraction, like many others, welcomes its first full Easter crowd since lockdown.
we're literally due to open the week of the first lockdown. The Saturday of that week was due to be our big grand opening, and obviously, unfortunately, that wasn't to be.
2 years later, and the farm is now fully open, providing fun for all ages.
And it's so lovely for us to see and hear children. It's the noise is just the best thing, you know, the giggles and the laughter of the adults as well. It's great. It's just the kind of sound that you'd want to borple and keep forever.
The star attraction is, of course, the Ba-ternity, where people can milk every moment of getting up close to adorable little lambs.
It's a special time of year, and to see some looks on the little boys and girls' faces when they're even just getting close to a lamb, or even when I come round with a bottle feed, it's literally as if Christmas has come again.
Well, if you're feeling sheepish about not having anything booked for Easter yet, don't worry. There are places like this with events happening all across the country. I know that I, for one, will certainly be back. If I don't get the sack after that joke. Laura Boyd, STV News. Yes, are you so cute?
Laura's had jokes a lot worse than that. She's still here, so I think she'll get away with that one.
But the lambs are so cute, John, you have to admit.
Somebody had to say it, didn't they? Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. Have a good night. Bye-bye.